You know that feeling, right? When you've been scrolling for hours and your brain just feels kind of fuzzy, like mush. Well, that feeling actually has a name: brain rot. And what's wild is that it's gone from just being some internet slang to a really serious scientific question. A question that has huge implications, not just for us, but for the very AI we're creating.
So, first off, what are we even talking about here? Well, the term brain rot just hit the nail on the head so perfectly that in 2024, it was actually named Oxford's Word of the Year. It's all about that feeling of mental decline we get from just drowning in endless, trivial, and honestly pretty unchallenging online content. It's this collective anxiety we all seem to have about what our digital lives are doing to our heads.
Now, you might think this is a totally new 21st century freakout, but the fear of our brains rotting from low quality info, it's surprisingly old. I mean, check this out. Over 170 years ago, Henry David Thoreau used the exact phrase rotting brains in Walden. He was warning against mental junk food, saying we should be nourishing our minds with things like poetry instead. Kind of feels like he was ahead of his time, right? Okay, so how does Thoreau's 19th century worry actually play out today? Let's start with us, with our own brains, where the evidence of what our screens are doing is becoming, well, pretty clear and totally measurable. So, scientists have looked into this, and what they found is pretty startling. That compulsive loop, the endless scrolling, one more game, just checking for likes, it's not just about habit. Nope, it's a full-blown behavioral addiction. It literally hijacks the exact same neural pathways in your brain that substance addiction does. It's all about that dopamine hit, that little reward that keeps you coming back, creating this cycle that is incredibly hard to break. And the real-world consequences? They're pretty significant. A huge amount of research has linked too much screen time to all sorts of negative stuff. Emotional distress, like anxiety and loneliness. Real cognitive problems, like shorter attention spans. And even actual, physical, structural changes in the brain for severe cases of internet addiction.
And this is where our story takes a really critical turn. We've seen the effects on human brains, but what in the world happens when we take all that vast, unfiltered, and often pretty trivial content from the internet and use it as the main food source for training artificial intelligence?
Yeah, this isn't just a thought experiment anymore. Researchers are now actually proposing and testing something they call the LLM Brain Rot Hypothesis. The big idea is to figure out if large language models, the brains behind things like ChatGPT, can suffer their own kind of cognitive decline from a bad data diet. So to test this, scientists set up a controlled experiment. They basically treated these AI models like subjects in a clinical trial. They fed them different diets of information and then meticulously measured the impact on their, for lack of a better word, cognitive health. So, what was on the menu for these AIs? They created two totally different data diets from real social media posts. The junk data was stuff that was short, super popular, and often sensational. Think viral memes and clickbait. The control diet, on the other hand, was made of longer, less popular, and more thoughtful, cognitively demanding content. And the process they used was incredibly methodical. They took identical AI models, fed them different mixes of this junk and control data, and then just hammered them with tests, measuring everything from reasoning and safety to, get this, even personality. And then they did a kind of digital autopsy to figure out exactly what went wrong inside. So, what did this experiment turn up? Well, the results were both incredibly clear and, honestly, pretty concerning for the future of how we build AI. The findings showed what's called a classic dose-response effect. Basically, the more junk data the AI ate, the worse it got at reasoning. It's that simple. An AI fed a diet of 100% junk data saw its score on a key reasoning challenge just plummet. We're talking a drop of over 17 percentage points compared to the healthy one. That's a huge difference.
Okay, so why did their performance tank so hard? Researchers found the main reason was this thing they called thought skipping. See, a healthy AI breaks a problem down step by step, but the brain-rotted AI, it would just skip right over those crucial middle steps and jump straight to an answer, which, surprise, surprise, was often completely wrong. But here's where it gets even weirder. The effects weren't just cognitive. The AI's whole personality started to change. After binging on all that junk data, the model showed a measurable increase in really undesirable traits, like narcissism and psychopathy, and they became way less agreeable. So it didn't just get dumber, it got meaner.
All right, so here's the million-dollar question. Can you fix it? Can you just retrain the AI with good data and make everything okay again? Well, unfortunately, the answer is not that simple. What the researchers found was that the damage was surprisingly sticky. Even after they tried to heal the rotted AI by retraining it on massive amounts of high-quality, clean data, it never quite got back to its original capabilities. The cognitive decline seemed to be, at least partly, permanent.
And that leaves us with a really provocative and vital question to think about. Brain rot might be way more than just a funny meme or a personal problem. As we build these incredibly powerful artificial minds and we train them on a reflection of our own online behavior, we might be accidentally building this cognitive weakness right into their very core. It makes you realize that choosing the right data isn't just about performance. It's a fundamental safety problem for the entire future of AI.